Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so I think this is going to be the 5th video in these, this opinel, I think I called it opinel edge test toothy versus polished series. The last one we went through, we cut some manila rope and measured the amount of force that it took to take the first cut, the 50th cut, and the 100th cut with these opinels with the 325 grit edge finish, the 6000 grit edge finish, and the chromium oxide stropped finish, and recorded the the force it took for each one of those cuts. Kind of compared them all together, and then we looked up underneath the microscope at the edges to kind of see what happened. So I kind of got to thinking I was going to put the bathroom scale away, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, let's go ahead and do this on poly rope. Okay, now this stuff right here is, everybody loves and likes different things. This stuff right here, I hardly ever even buy this stuff. It doesn't really seem to take a knot all that well, and I really don't care for it all that much. I'm not even sure why I have a small coil of it here in the shop, but we'll go ahead and do some cut tests on this. In the past, about the only 2 ropes that I have found that were harder to cut on a repeated basis than this type of rope is mooring rope for like ships. Back when I used to work offshore when I was a kid, the boat I was on, the Western Aleutian, it was a twin screw ship. What was it, about 185 foot long, something like that. We were mapping the ocean floor, and we ran over a mooring line, or, well, that's what everybody called it. So I'm not sure if it was an actual mooring line or if it was just a line using to tow another boat or whatever, but let me tell you, this rope was like that freaking big around, and it was made up of solid, or multi-strands of this stuff right here. We ended up calling a diver. He came out because the rope got, it's a twin prop boat, and so the rope got caught up in those 2 props, and twisted all up and stalled out the engines. Those were 8 or 12 cylinder Detroits. God, that's been like 20 some years ago. So, but they were big frickin' engines, and just stalled them out. And so we had a diver come out. And he came out with his wetsuit and everything, and he had serrated kitchen knives taped, with rope onto each hand, and so like well, they were kind of dangling off of, it was like a lanyard, and then it was wrapped around his wrist, so he always had a knife handy. And he went down up underneath there, and it took him like, God, it seemed like it took forever, but it was probably only maybe an hour or so. He was down there cutting those ropes free, and we'd see chunks of it, come floating up, on the side of the boat, and pretty cool. The only other type of rope that I've found that's, as tough or tougher to cut than this is the ropes that cowboys use when they do their, their throwing ropes, and those are even worse than this. I mean, those ropes are like almost like straight plastic that's been twisted together. I mean, so hard that you can't hardly unravel the dang things. Just truly a phenomenal piece of rope. But anyways, I don't have any of either one of those, so we're going to go ahead and cut this poly rope. We're going to follow the same general format as we did on the last one, except for I don't think we need to pull out the microscope and check the edges after we're done with. So I did go ahead and put fresh edges on all of these knives. With the 325, well, all of them, all of them, I brought them up to a new burr, prepped the burr, removed the burr with the different methods, and then the one that stropped, I went ahead and stropped it on chromium oxide and then linen and leather. So it's a nice polished edge ready to shave your face if you need to. So anyway, so this rope here is, it looks like about 1/4 inch or so, because somebody will ask. It is 220 thousandths, so a little bit under 1/4 inch. And we've got the same setup with the same pine board. These numbers are likely to be, you know, I don't know. I mean, they might be about the same because it's a smaller diameter rope, but it is a tougher material that the rope is made out of. So we'll just find out here. All right, so there's 4 or 5 pounds worth of, you know, weight for the board, the rope, and my hand. So that was 13-ish. Let's do a different one. That was 11-ish. 10. 11. Okay. So 11-ish cuts. I'll bring you down so you can hear it. That'd be like what, 4? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This stuff right here is really, it's popping up. I mean, it could be that the sunshine is coming in from the window a little bit and catching all the fibers, but it's a very dynamic cut. And usually with manila rope, I get a nice, neat pile here that sits on the board. This is popping out and going all over the bench. Okay, 49, and then we're going to 50. This particular batch of rope really isn't all that tough to cut at all. Okay, so there's about my 4 foot. Well, we're gonna have to take you off because that's weight. That's on the scale. The camera doesn't weigh all that much, but the base that the camera is on probably weighs about 6 ounces or so. All right, so there's 4 or 5. 13-ish, 12, 12, about 12. Oh, and you know what? We didn't write down the first one. What was that? What was it? 10-ish? So 10, and then 12, and then let's do 50 more cuts. Okay, there's 49. So this will be our 100th cut. There's 4 or 5 pounds. Probably 13, 12, 13-ish. Okay, so we'll go ahead and call that 13. This rope right here is quite a bit different than the poly rope that I've cut in the past. It must be a different blend. I'm really not feeling any burrs turning up. One thing that I forgot to mention on the video when we were measuring the geometry of the knife and everything. Remember, these edges right here are, they're about 4/1000ths of an inch thick at the shoulder of the edge. So where your sharpening marks end and your blade finish starts, okay, we measured that at 4/1000ths of an inch, or about the thickness of a human hair, maybe a little bit kind of a coarse type hair, or a slightly thinner than a post-it note. Okay, so you could actually call these paper thin edges, and they're still doing this good. A lot of times when you get steels down to that, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 thousandths range, they can be a little bit fussy to begin with until you sharpen back and thicken them up just a touch. But these seem to be doing really, really good. Okay, so now we got the 6,000 grit edge. And like I said, this is fresh because I put a new one on yesterday after I got done with the last cutting. So there's my 4 pounds. Now right there, oh, 14, 15, you know, that feels like it's sliding quite a bit. But I'm having to, no, I mean, it's still cutting it pretty good at about 14 pounds. But it's a much different feel. Is that 5? That's 30. I mean, there's still some teeth in that edge, but it's sliding a lot more. That was 30, right? So okay, that's 49. Pull you up here. There's my 4 or 5 pounds. Oh, 15, 17, 17, 18, and they're not quite making it all the way through. Yeah, about 17, 18. Well, that one went 20. So we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and we'll call it 18. So let's go ahead and do 50 more. Here we're having to put enough force down there that roundness on that handle is really starting to get me. What I'm kind of noticing is if I put my ring finger right there in that hook, and then just kind of let this float a little bit, that seems to help. I think that was 30. Okay, now this is the 50th one. 22, 24, 23, 23. So we'll call that 23. The rope pieces are making it clear over onto my notepad over here. And I'm not feeling any burrs on that edge either, so the edge hasn't really rolled over or nicked out or anything like that. We'll put those here. Now this one is going to be the interesting one, okay? So this one is the polished edge, okay? So stropped and ready to shave with pretty much. See how it's just popping them hairs right off my arm? It's going to be really interesting to see, because remember, this really doesn't have any teeth at all. We've pretty much polished all the teeth off. Okay, so there's our about 4 pounds or so. $18, $18, $18, $17, $20. So we're going to call that 18. Which is 4 pounds more than the 6,000 grit edge and 8 pounds more than the 325 grit edge. Pull you down here. Now here what I'm doing is I'm changing my cuts a little bit, because if I just draw it across, see, nothing's happening. I mean, let's get it all completely clean here. So that's a clean cutting board right there, right? Look at that. See, that edge is just slipping right in. I mean, now I'm not really pushing down at all, but still. There's no cuts there. So now let's push down with 5 pounds of force. And see, you can oh, there's a couple of pieces coming out. There's 3 pieces, there's 3 strands cut. Now let's cut more. Now we're looking at 8. So about 8 pounds of force. Now we're starting to actually cut through it. Now 10, 12. Okay. Now if we were to take, well, actually let's go ahead and take this this 325 grit edge and do the same thing. Okay, now that's hardly putting any force on it at all. That's 5 to 6 pounds, and it's all the way through. That's a big difference right there in the polished versus toothy. Okay, so I think I was about ready to take, okay, this was going to be the 50th cut. Ish, 23, 23, 24. Let's call it 23. Let's do 50 more cuts. But what I'm doing here is I'm actually, now my hand is kind of automatically going from a slice cut to a push cut, because I'm drawing back and it's really not doing what it needs to be doing. So I'm actually shortening up my draw and pushing considerably harder to get the knife to work. That's what, 10? That's 40. Okay, now this is going to be the 50th one. There's 4 pounds. 28. Oh, and it still didn't cut it all the way through. 32. 32. 30. 34. Okay, so I said what, 32? Okay, so 32, that's well, first I'm not feeling any burrs, which you would almost kind of think, I mean, putting that kind of force on that tiny of an edge, that you would start to get some edge deformation just because the amount of force that you're putting on that little bitty section of steel. I don't really see a whole lot on the edge, but that doesn't really matter. But anyways, but that does really show you the difference between a toothy edge and a polished edge in that poly rope. So now let's go over our numbers again right quick. No. I'll just leave you up there. Okay, so with the 325 grit edge, we had 10 pounds for the first cut, 12 pounds for the 50th cut, and 13 pounds for the 100th cut. The 6,000 grit edge, we had 14 pounds for the first cut, 18 pounds for the 50th cut, and 23 pounds for the 100th cut. So, what is that, about 50% more? 50% of 10 is 5, so 10 plus 5 would be 14. 50% of 12 would be 6. 6 plus 12 is 18. And 50% of 13 would be what, 7-ish? 7 plus 13 is 20 or so. So about 50% more force going from a 325 grit edge to a 6,000 grit edge. Now going to the polished edge, the 3,000 grit edge, our first cut was 18 pounds, so almost double what our 325 grit edge was. Our 50th cut was 23 pounds, which is almost double 12, which is, you know, on the 325 grit edge. And for the 100th cut was 32, which is almost 3 times what the 325 grit edge did. All right, but like I said, I mean, they cut differently. And, you know, this isn't really, well, I guess it's kind of sort of finding out what the best edge for whatever application would be. But this one right here really kind of goes to show why I really don't care for polished edges in everyday work knife type deals. It'll be real interesting to see. I've got some cardboard saved up and a couple of dog food bags. It'll be really interesting to see what the difference between those 3 edges are in things like that. And then once we get done out here in the shop, you know, cutting paper and cardboard and what did I say, dog food bags, chip bags, you know, things like that. Then we'll move into the kitchen and we'll do things like tomatoes, onions, carrots, you know, food type items. So, I don't know, this, for a knife nut like me, this stuff is just fascinating. I mean, yeah, this is pretty cool stuff. So, and I'm hoping you guys are enjoying it also. So again, if you have any ideas or things that you want to see tested between those 3 different edges, you know, drop a comment down below and we'll see if we can't get, you know, that in there. In fact, I'm almost thinking about going and getting, well, I'll just let this go for a week or 2 and then we'll go ahead and, you know, I'll run to Walmart and pick up a whole bunch of stuff and bring it home and cut it all up and put it on camera and see what happens. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. I hope you guys are enjoying this series as much as I am, and we will see you on the next one.